You're listening to Myers-Briggs Question Corner with Edythe Richards.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to another edition of Myers-Briggs Question Corner. I'm joined this week by my fabulous producer, David, so welcome, David.
Hi, Edythe. And hello, listeners. This is episode 78. Can you believe that? We've produced 78 podcasts. Isn't that amazing? We've been doing this for quite a while now.
Well, funny you should mention that, as in many ways it seems like we just started, but it's a testament to all the hard work we've done and managed to continue bringing content to everyone on a weekly basis and still remain advertisement-free.
Yes, quite an accomplishment to have all this content out there. So if you're just tuning in, please do take a look through our previous episodes. If you're a fan of the Myers-Briggs and have a question about the assessment itself, or about a particular personality type, we might actually already have a podcast out there on it.
And if you can't find what you're looking for, give us a shout out and we'll be thrilled to answer your question on air.
Yes, that would be great. We do love hearing from our regular subscribers, so don't be shy, folks. And with that, now today it's me again with the question of the week. Edythe, are you ready?
I'm ready, David. Let's hear it.
Okay, here goes. How can a person tell if they're a judger or a perceiver?
Good question. And we can't just tell by looking at someone what type they are, but sometimes there are some clues. Off the top of my head, perceiving types may take longer to make decisions because they're considering all of their options, while judging types may appear to be very decisive. The choice of words and language they use might be different as well. We'll hear judging types say things like, you should do this, or why don't you do that? And it's their way of expressing an opinion, although to perceiving types, it may sound like they're giving advice or instruction.
Interesting. I hadn't considered the use of language. We could probably have a whole conversation on this.
I'm sure, but let me backtrack a little and ask, you surely know a lot about the Myers-Briggs at this point, David, so I'm guessing this question isn't coming from you.
Oh, no. After all these years working with you, Edythe, I'm clear that I'm a judger, or J, negative as that sounds. This question comes from someone that I know. I was trying to explain the differences between judging and perceiving, you see. But the person I was speaking to was quite insistent that she's right in the middle of these two. But from what you've talked about over the years, we're either one or the other. So what's the deal, Edythe? Is she right? Can a person be in the middle?
Right. According to the theory behind the Myers-Briggs, we all have a preference for one side or the other. And what we mean by preference here is that there's a side that comes more easily and naturally to us. In other words, it's not learned behavior. And I think that's where this one dichotomy of J and P can become confusing for people. I guess the best way to describe it is that in most workplaces, for example, J is the preference for work. And I think that as a society, it's the preferred way of being.
Indeed. And speaking as a J myself, I'll agree with society on this one. For those of our listeners who may not be so familiar with the concepts of judging and perceiving, let's give them a quick rundown on this. What do you say, Edythe?
Great idea. So how about you take the J and I'll take the P?
Well, since you're the P, that's perfect.
Yes, that I am. Oh, and before you get started, David, let me chime in here for a minute and clear up on any potential misunderstanding about the word judging. It has nothing to do with passing judgment on others or being judgmental.
Right. Thanks for that, Edythe. Although, let's face it, we J's are known to be a pretty judgmental bunch.
Well, you said it, not me.
So I did. Not always a bad thing, that. Right. This dichotomy on the Myers-Briggs refers to how we orientate ourselves to our external world. Our preferred lifestyle, if you will. Do you prefer a structured or planned lifestyle, or a flexible and adaptable lifestyle? J's, or judging types, are the structured ones. We like our routines. We need to have a sense of control and closure, and we value our time very much. We don't like surprises. We want to be prepared for everything. We make lists. We always have a plan B, sometimes a plan C, D, and E. I do enjoy making plans and lists myself, and checking off tasks as I accomplish them. We J's are accused of being organised, As for myself, I don't want to say I'm super organised, because my desk and my office are a complete mess. But maybe they are organised to someone else. I'm not sure. But I will say that what I identify with most about being a judging type is the planning aspect. Not wanting to be caught by surprise and needing to have things finished. I don't like having things up in the air or in the unknown.
Great description of judging types, David. Thanks for that. Now, moving on to P, or perceiving types. As much as I admire J's, I also find them boring and quite stressful. I mean, you all do kind of stress me out, but I know that we P's stress you all out too, so I guess it's only fair.
Yeah, from time to time perhaps we do get on each other's nerves.
We sure can. In fact, we have a couple other podcasts for our listeners tuning in that address this issue. Are Perceivers Lazier Than Judgers? And Perceivers and Time Management, both available on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts, and on my website, www.atopcareer.com.
Yes, these were quite good fun to put together, and they were very informative too, if I may say so.
Yes, they are. So, Perceivers. We need to feel free to express ourselves and enjoy life. We just don't work well with strict schedules and timelines. I mean, I can think of nothing I dislike more than being told to do some boring task at exactly 2:04 every day of the week. I'd go absolutely nuts. We're adaptable, go-with-the-flow type people. We want to experience all that life has to offer. And just as much as disorder or having things undecided frustrates you, it's the opposite for us. I'm incredibly stressed out when I'm forced to make a decision before I'm ready. I want to make sure I've gathered enough information to make an informed decision. In fact, it's very hard for me to understand why people make decisions just to make them so they can check something off their to-do list or come to closure on something. A lot of the time, I feel like decisions are too hastily made, and it ends up costing more time and energy. You ask me what my plans are for the next weekend, it's Monday. I don't know. Ask me on Friday. And I reserve the right to change my mind at the last minute. Now, I realize that this may look like we P's are procrastinating, but that's not always the case. We're just open to new information, and we like to consider our options. I like to think that we're open-minded and fun and don't take life so seriously. In fact, I think we need more P's in the world.
Well, I have to say, it wouldn't do the world any harm to have more relaxation. That's for sure. And you know, we J's actually like to plan our relaxation.
Oh, the irony.
Yes, well, we can't really help it, you know. So, Edythe, one thing we've talked about in previous podcasts is how people often adopt the behaviours of their opposite, just because they have to, in order to survive at work, for example. Or perhaps if they've grown up in a family where their natural preferences aren't allowed to flourish. I can see this happening with the J and P dichotomy too. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I've worked with several people over the years who swear that they're a P at home and a J at work, or like the person you were talking to, can't decide which side they fall on. For whatever reason, these folks have learned to use their opposite side. But let's remember that the Myers-Briggs measures preferences, not abilities. We all have the ability to decide, to make lists, and to come to closure. This is where there are some misconceptions about the Myers-Briggs. Just because we may change some of our behaviors according to our environment doesn't mean we change our core personality.
So we evolve over the course of our lives. We adapt to the circumstances as necessary. That does make a lot of sense. And we can each benefit from the other in so many ways. But how about ways to spot a J or a P, Edythe? Do you have any tips for that?
One way is to ask someone if they make lists. Now, chances are that they do, but is this learned behavior? For example, I myself make lists sometimes, but I only do it out of necessity. It's definitely not my natural inclination to do so.
Oh, well that explains a few things then. Now me, I'm a natural list maker. If I wasn't, I couldn't get anything accomplished. Now, my lists aren't always on paper though. Edythe, does that come into play at all?
Often it does, and I've never done a study on this or anything of the sort, but I had a lot of judging types tell me that they do make lists, but they're all in their head, and they still cross off items that they've completed, and they take great pleasure in doing so.
So list making could be something that we judging types enjoy because we feel comfortable when everything is ordered and in its proper place.
Whereas the process of making lists in itself is often frustrating for we perceiving types, but we understand the need for it, and therefore it becomes learned behavior. So to your earlier point, David, the person you spoke with may have learned the value of making lists early in his or her life, and it's almost second nature now. But that doesn't mean she's either a J or a P. Really, the easiest and most accurate way to determine one's true Myers-Briggs type or best fit type is to read the description. She might be clear on her other 3 letters, for example, in which case it could be the difference between an ISFJ or an ISFP, for example. And in fact, for some Myers-Briggs types, that one letter can be a world of difference in terms of how personality manifests itself to the world.
Yes, an ISFP and ISFJ are good examples of this. Though they may have some similarities, they often have very different career paths, for example.
Right, and for more on Myers-Briggs and careers, I'd like to invite our listeners to tune in to our other podcast series, Myers-Briggs for Midlife Career Changers.
I'll include these links in the podcast show notes. Thanks, Edythe.
So I think we're coming to the close of another episode, David. I really appreciate you joining me for this one.
It's always a pleasure. Time really flew by there. Edythe, thank you. Many thanks for tuning in to another episode of Myers-Briggs Question Corner. Just a quick point. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on air, just give us a shout out on social media or contact us through the website www.atopcareer.com. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a shout out or a share on social media. And subscribe to this podcast so you won't miss another episode. We'd like to stay free of adverts, but we do need your help to do this. Thanks again to all our regular listeners and subscribers. Until next time. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you'd like to hear more, or you'd like to submit a question yourself, then you can find us at www.atopcareer.com. Until next time. MBTI and Myers-Briggs are registered trademarks of the MBTI Trust.